What's going on, everybody? It's your resident nerd, Lance, and I'm hanging out with Gabe and the Jedi Troll. Welcome to another episode of Bad Movie Club, brought to you by Absurd Words from Your Preferred Nerds. Now, on today's episode, we're talking about the 1987 film Robo Vampire 2, Devil's Dynamite, directed by Godfrey Ho.
Well, actually, under this one, he goes by the name Joe Livingston.
Joe Livingston.
Why does he change his name?
I don't know. I mean,
have you seen his movies?
So I guess the thought process there is that he's so bad directing each one that he wouldn't get another job if they knew who did this movie or did each movie.
Well, technically, in the 80s alone, he did over 80 films under different names. He started off in 1974. You might remember that from another movie that we did, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. But he started working as an intern for the Shaw Brothers.
Clearly, he didn't take much away from that experience.
Well, he started there at the same time as John Woo. So they have similar career paths.
I'd say John Woo came out of that better than Godfrey Ho.
But he's got over 115 films to his credit under all of his different names. But his last one was in 1999. And since 2010, he's been teaching at the Hong Kong Film Academy as the emeritus director, I guess, or whatever title
he's teaching?
Yes, he's teaching films.
Didn't you tell me something interesting about that? You said that he doesn't, he actually takes the ideas from other films?
The reason that he's done so many films is he has an infatuation, per se, with ninjas and vampires. You'll see that theme run a lot. But, of course, sometimes due to budget constraints and time, it's hard to put out 80 movies in a 10-year period as a director sometimes. So what he does is he goes, like for this film, he went and bought a 1982 Taiwan movie about gambling. And he cuts half the movie out and then films new scenes with ninjas and vampires and works them into the story. Seamlessly on most occasions.
Seamlessly.
So I did have a feeling while I was watching it, I was like, man, this really feels like two different movies stitched together very loosely. Like there was one or two cast members that they got back to kind of interact with each other in these disconnected scenes to make it tie together in one story.
Well, the same thing happened in Robo Vampire 1 that came out the following year.
So yeah, I think that's...
Technically, it came out... The first one came out in 87 on December 31st to qualify for Oscars because they have to be released to qualify to get for the Best Picture. So it's technically an 88 film because that's when its wide release happened, but it actually came out in Hong Kong in 1980, New Year's Eve of 87 to qualify. So that's, the same thing happened in the first one was like a drug... the first one had like a drug subplot.
So he buys
other films, the rights to other films,
and then adds
and
his
says, well, this is, I know how I can make this better. We need to add some ninjas and vampires, and so they film fight scenes with those, which usually don't involve the main characters in the other storyline because they weren't in that movie.
So he takes stories that are already written and he just throws his stuff in.
He enhances them.
So it's an already filmed movie by another director, and
yes.
he just adds his shit to it.
Yes, the vampires and ninjas. Yeah.
Okay.
And they usually use.
I thought that was interesting.
For some reason, they don't care about copyrights either because in some of the things I've read, he's used like James Bond music.
Well, I mean, clearly copyright laws are very loose in China because the Robo Vampire, the robot, on all the posters and everything is RoboCop.
Yeah.
Not in the movie, because clearly they didn't have the budget for that. But
especially in this sequel.
Well, that's what I wanted to clear up. The movie is not actually a sequel. It is a separate, unrelated film titled Devil's Dynamite that they repurposed as a sequel to Robo Vampire. I'm assuming Robo Vampire was more successful, so they just retitled this film as Robo Vampire 2, Devil's Dynamite.
He, the robot, if you can call him that, looked better in Robo Vampire than he did Robo Vampire 2. It seems like, it sucked. Robo Vampire sucked. But they tried. And this one, they gave him a spacesuit. There was aluminum foil and a bucket.
That's actually, when I was taking my notes, that's what I refer to him as aluminum foil man.
Yeah, and then he moves. He actually, Robo Vampire, he tried to move like a robot. This one, he's just
Well, I don't think he's supposed to be a robot. I think he's like a Power Rangers type superhero, because his powers just come out, like he turns from human into this thing.
That makes more sense.
I think, so it's the fact that he's silver and he's got that visor across like RoboCop that they just, when they repurposed it as Robo Vampire 2, they called him a robot, but he's not really a robot. I don't think that was their intention.
Like the first one.
Mm-hmm.
In the first one, Tom.
That makes sense.
In the first one, it was Tom who was the drug agent who was killed, and then they got permission to do an experiment to bring him back to life as a robot.
As long as it was successful and discreet, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Kept secret.
His application was approved.
Approved immediately.
If those two stipulations fell into place. And I have to say, how about that twist? You have one villain, but oh wait!
Oh, in this? Yeah, that was the biggest shock for me, because I know Steve had watched part of the movie
And he was talking about some of it.
about Steve Cox being the villain, but Steve Cox wasn't the villain.
No, you think he is.
Well, when you first saw him, it was one of the most chilling. I mean, I got like goosebumps thinking like the first time I saw Darth Vader come out in Star Wars down the hallway.
It was not that chilling.
It was like, oh, it's Steve Cox.
He seemed so calm when you first met him too.
Well, that was when, like when the movie first starts, like even when it's just the
guy
priest
that's doing whatever he's doing.
I was like, man, this guy is already more interesting than the entire first Robo Vampire, though. He's doing all this crazy telekinetic martial arts stuff.
Ooh,
Fire.
But then wait, here comes Big Bad, not Big Bad.
And the ninjas.
Yes, they sent ninjas to find him. Mm-hmm. And they went into a prison camp, and none of the prisoners would talk, so the ninjas killed all the prisoners.
All of them.
Yeah, that's when I started to get confused, like, right away. I was like, okay, we have our good guys and our bad guys. And then, like, the ninjas and people are fighting each other on both sides. I'm like, okay, well, there's not good guys and bad guys in this. Everybody's kind of bad except Alex, the the whatever you want to call him, the Shadow Warrior. I think that's what they refer to him as. Who wears silver, so he's a Shadow Warrior. I don't understand that.
He was a stealth assassin.
Ah, okay. That makes
There's
sense.
the thought that the light reflects off of him and you can't see him? Like, what's the silver for?
But the ninjas were only in there, they were as a test to fight the vampires, because the guy wanted to prove that vampires are no match. I mean, ninjas are no match for the vampires.
The Chinese menus did fly faster in this one. They did fly faster in this one. I noticed that. First time he does it, it's like a split second. It's like...
If you guys haven't been following along with our previous episodes, the weakness of Chinese vampires is Chinese takeout menus. You throw them, they land on the heads, and stick to the heads of the vampires.
And they stop in their tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they freeze.
And these vampires do hop as well. They hop.
And they grow stronger as they drink blood.
So not Steve Cox.
No, this
one
ominous plan was cooked up by Madame Mary. Who, when Steve Cox went to jail 10 years prior, Steve Cox was the gambling king of Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And once he went to jail, Mary took over his criminal empire.
Mm-hmm. 10 years in jail?
10 years in jail.
10 years in jail.
I love some of the expositional dialogue. Like, the one guy is like, "Who are you?" He goes, "I'm Steve Cox. She'll tell you the rest."
And in case you forget his name, it is said 14 times in the first 18 minutes of the film.
You counted?
14 times.
That's just saying his first and last name together. There were
Steve
other times
Cox.
when they said Cox
Or Steve.
But
that's Steve Cox or
Cox,
Stephen Cox.
My God. 14 times.
Yeah, this is in my notes here. I watched the movie over a week ago preparing for this and took my notes. So I don't remember who this line is attributed to, but I remembered it being the clunkiest line of dialogue in the whole movie, so I had to write it down. Someone says, "Don't worry. Once he's released, I know his plans, and then we will get him." Like, grammatically, like, stopped like that. Like, there's commas and pauses in the middle of this sentence that are just terrible. I'm assuming the actor saying it didn't know English or something, and he's just trying to phonetically sound it out.
It was probably the same actor that was like, "Oh no, someone tipped off the pigs. Get me out of here!" Like his voice. I don't even remember his name. It was terrible.
Some weird names in this movie too for like
very.
what's supposed to be, I guess, a martial arts and vampire movie. You got Fox, Stephen Cox, Ronald, Madame Mary, Tony, Louie, Alex, the Shadow Warrior, and Peggy.
What about Henry or what was his name?
Which one?
There was that scene where they were at the desert and blah blah blah. And they were with the three guys. And
blah blah blah.
they hand that guy the knife and he like stabs his eye, and then all of a sudden it just cuts and it's like everybody's clapping at a wedding. And then the phone rings and he's like, "Who is this?" And he goes, "I know Henry or Harry. Does that interest you?" And he's like, "No, you ruined my wedding." And like Henry or Harry, what was his name? I can't remember. I don't remember. I apologize.
I don't know, but they weren't in the desert. They were on the beach.
On the
Because Steve Cox was having to dig for his gold. And once the gold was taken out, that was going to be his grave.
Okay, my apologies. Beach. I thought it was desert.
I know about 32 minutes in, they introduced these kid characters, and I had no clue what the fuck was going on with these kids.
I have an interesting
I still don't know what's
theory
going on
about
with those
that.
kids.
What's that?
I think I've figured it out. When you watch the first one, and here's how, you talked about how this was not a sequel, it had nothing to do with it. Here's where I believe that you were mistaken.
Oh,
Correct me, please.
it's a bidding war now.
There's a scene that just almost randomly seems to pop up, unless you dive deep into it.
In the first one or second?
Of the second one.
Second.
Of these two kids playing. This one kid dresses up like a vampire to scare this little girl.
Yeah, that confused me because it seemed like he popped out from behind a rock suddenly, makeup and everything on. I was like, is he really a vampire?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize he wasn't
thought
really a
there was gonna be
vampire
a little bit of a twist with the
until
kids,
his
but-
mom comes up and gets him, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Their mom.
Continue, Steve.
Here is how these movies tie together. It is my working theory that the first movie, there's a time jump. That this movie, while it's a sequel, is actually a prequel. The boy and the girl is the werewolf and the ghost woman from the first film who were in love.
God, wouldn't that be a twist?
Who were in love and wanted to get married to consummate their marriage before they're eternally laid to rest.
Could you imagine if Godfrey Ho put that much thought into making these movies?
And
that would
why?
I would applaud him.
And you know why
That
I
would
think
be-
that is because in the second scene that the kids are in, no, the first scene, the girl just vanishes in a puff of smoke, like she wasn't ever there. I believe she is the ghost woman from the first film.
So she's the ghost, and he's the vampire werewolf thing.
Yes.
With the gorilla mask or whatever.
Yes.
So, okay,
It makes sense.
That does make sense.
that would make everything so much better.
Everything so much better, yeah. Man, I would have to give him a very nice applause.
Did you guys notice Alex had a weird random accent in the movie?
Yes.
What was it? Was like Australian half the time? I couldn't tell what it was supposed to be.
Australian with twang, with...
I'm assuming just like Robo Vampire, everybody is ADR'd in this movie, so that's not their real voices.
You could definitely tell.
But
Definitely tell.
it's just, it didn't seem
But the
in
choices
place
they chose
at
for their
all.
voices
Yeah.
was a little out of place.
They probably got 2 or 3 different actors to do everybody's voices, so they just do accents to make it sound like somebody
or
else.
attempted accents, yeah. I can see that, totally.
I did like the first time Alex changed. Of course, it was in the big fight there in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you have to worry about secret identities and stuff, but he did it was like a Shazam, like a He-Man transformation. It was like blink and you miss it.
He did have surprisingly decent martial arts, though, during those fight sequences. It was better than any fight scene in the first Robo Vampire. I'll give it credit for that.
I mean, even like you were talking about at the beginning when he was doing his telekinetic, I mean, that was kind of interesting.
And then, like, he's fighting the cops and stuff, and I'm kind of like, are the cops corrupt? Because if he's a superhero, good guy, why is he fighting cops? And then the one cop was marrying Mother Mary, Madam Mary, Louis. But I guess he didn't know she was still crime lord or something. He thought she'd reformed.
Louis is the worst cop ever because
he didn't work.
We never saw him work.
He never worked.
And he was marrying a crime syndicate boss that he had no idea was involved in any kind of...
He was terrible. That was terrible.
Yeah, so I spent half the movie thinking these were like corrupt cops because Mary was blatantly marrying this cop, and then find out the cop had no idea. And at the end of the movie, when Steve Cox told him, he was just like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?"
And it's like, the whole movie never works, never hints on it. He's just an awful cop.
Yeah, I thought I'd missed like some chunk of exposition, and I watched this movie with like headphones on and no distractions.
No, so, you didn't miss it. No, it's just that's it. That I don't know.
And of course, after that first fight in the restaurant, Alex had injured the vampires, and they had to heal, which involved an ancient form of Chinese acupuncture with sparklers.
There were sparklers.
Well, from Robo Vampire, remember? That's what he used to fight robots.
Yeah,
he had the little sparklers in his hands. That's just these vampires need sparklers.
I think Ronald was definitely my favorite actor in the whole movie because he oversold every line, or undersold, I should say, every line. It sounds like he was in his sleep every time he talked. Plus, his name was Ronald.
Yeah.
He's this nefarious character.
He was in bed one time and because he's like, "This is he?" And he's like, "What are you telling me?"
The best delivery he gave in the whole movie at that point. He actually emoted.
Oh, I don't know. It was bad. They're really hard to watch. Because you want to sleep. You want to do anything else. You want to, take a crap more than you want to watch. I mean, it's just...
Well,
I want to see Robo Vampire 3.
Well, I mean, we're going to inevitably have to address that on a future episode. We've done 2 in the trilogy. We've got to get that final film.
Then I say we do it next.
Next?
If there's some way, just to get it out of the way.
All right.
Let's just, while these are fresh on our minds, we can just correlate these, and just keep going, and combine them all together.
Now, I did enjoy the Madam Mary birthday party.
Her birthday party.
When they announced the surprise engagement of Louis and Mary.
What did you enjoy about it the most?
Well, when Steve Cox crashed the party, no invitation, just showed up.
It's Steve Cox. He didn't need an invitation.
And then he shut down the illegal gambling table that was rigged, and got the woman's ring back that she just sold for $3,000.
Chick had a weird voice too. I don't know who was dubbing her. Maybe like a dude, but
they just choose. They're just, the voices are out of place. Like, I know these movies are bad, but you would think they could do something right and get some decent voice actors at the least. I mean, they don't have to go top notch like Vic Mignogna or any of these professional, but I mean,
yeah, I guess at the time you would have had people like Frank Welker and stuff available, Jim Cummings, voice actors.
But
Mel Blanc.
Was Mel Blanc alive in '87? He died in the '80s, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. 85? No.
What year did he die?
It wasn't 90s.
I know, like, some of the later Looney Tunes cartoons he was in were in either the 80s or the 90s, maybe early 90s, but... Either way, I mean, we'll come back to that, but...
88, my birth year.
There was like 10 minutes left in the movie, and both of the priests are still preparing their forces for this climactic battle, and I was like, thinking, how long is this fight going to be if there's only 10 minutes left in the whole movie, and they're still preparing to fight? And that was like a more abrupt ending than I think the first movie had, really.
Because the first one, he was sitting there spinning around, then he fights, vampire with his pea flamethrower. And then he turns around and you're like, okay, wait, what? Credits? Wait, what? What's going on?
Yeah, this one had the climactic battle, and then the Steve Cox was talking to Louis, and then over.
That's it.
Well, it had other big battle scenes. Remember when Mary sent that army, that truckload of people to that warehouse, and Peggy was shot?
Vaguely, yeah.
I don't.
I mean, she sent a truck, and there must have been, 30 people in the back of the truck. It was reminiscent of, it reminded me a lot of the Helm's Deep battle from Lord of the Rings. It was an epic scale fought. The choreography was amazing.
Well, during the end battle, the final battle, Alex, the Shadow Warrior, fucking moonwalked in the fight. I had to rewind it, go back to watch it again, because he actually moonwalked like Michael Jackson, slid his feet on the floor, and walked backwards. It was the most bizarre thing I think I've ever seen, and so out of place.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
There was no
scene.
other pop culture references in this movie, no hit pop music or anything to make it lead toward that. No sense of humor even towards the movie, really.
I'm gonna have to go back and
he
see
moonwalked.
That. I want to see that. That's funny.
Well, to be fair, he wouldn't have won that fight had he not had some very dangerous training from a Taoist who gave him additional powers, gave him an anti-sorcery mirror, which came in handy.
Well, everybody needs an anti-sorcery mirror.
I mean, you never know when you're going to run into Saruman.
So, I did have a question when I finished the movie. Where the hell does the title Devil's Dynamite come from?
Same question. That'll be an answer that Steve will have to give because I still don't understand. And he showed me the poster for it, and I still don't understand.
With the helicopter and everything? Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm lost.
But clearly that was the original title and the original poster for it, and they just tack on the Robo Vampire 2 stuff after the fact or whatever. But even with its original title being Devil's Dynamite, I have no idea how that correlates to the movie.
Unless they're saying in other vampire movies, he's the devil himself. They're saying the vampires are
even a
devils?
Dracula lead. We didn't even have a lead vampire in this.
They were just servants.
Movie. Yeah.
They were just servants. It was all servant vampires that I remember. But yeah, I mean you're right. And I don't think they mention the vampires being devils either.
Wasn't really a lot of explosives to.
No, there was no dynamite.
There were sparklers.
Yeah, but no dynamite.
Could we just call it vampire sparklers instead of devil's dynamite?
The undead sparklers.
I think Steve Cox really won me over when he sees Mary on the beach and he's attacking Mary and Louis comes up and he won't fight Louis because he knows it's not Louis' fault, it's Mary's fault. I just thought that was great. And then of course Gabe mentioned the wedding. I'm telling you that it's the best.
Interruption.
You see wedding scenes all the time in movies, Hallmark movies, TV shows, movies, but no one has ever the old part where if anybody here knows a reason why these two should not be married, speak now. But no one has ever made a phone call and interrupted a wedding.
Now there has been a wedding that was interrupted by technology.
What wedding was that?
Fantastic Four, remember? Can we hurry this along? So, I mean, that's similar, but a direct ring, 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 hello, you ruined my wedding. You are right. I mean...
Well, then not to mention the guy that had been attacked, the guard that was attacked outside and thrown through the window over the altar. But they said that, it's okay, just give us a minute, we'll clean that up, and we'll be back on track.
You interrupt my wedding. Who are you?
For all of its faults, I think I enjoyed it more than the first Robo Vampire.
Ouch. I said the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe the suit because, being that the first one was actually Robo Vampire, his suit was more of a robot. This did not resemble a robot at all. It was very cheap looking. But I don't, again, think it was supposed to be a robot. I think it's supposed to be a superhero type thing that he transforms into. So I give it some slack for that, but I think the characters were more interesting in this one. I think the fight scenes were better in this one. the martial arts and everything. So I definitely give this a leg up on the other one.
I've got to say, I don't know. I just the head vampire, werewolf, monkey, plus the ghost lady, plus his suit. I don't know. Just
well, it had them in
it
it.
seemed
They were
more
just kids
eerie.
in
It seemed more like.
If
I
that
don't know.
theory holds true, I mean that gives this movie a little bit more of an edge. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not.
If it's true, if it's not true, it's.
He's
just
sitting there
another-
making this movie a year later, or 6 months later, whatever the time span is, and he's like, "Man, remember those kids I had in the first one?
They're
what
gonna
if they
be the
grew up
ghost
to
and
be a
the
ghost and a
vampire."
vampire?" Yeah.
They were acting like it.
Which
the
I
first
would
one.
also get because I think both movies are supposed to be set in like contemporary modern day times at the time. So how would they grow up between movies, become a ghost and a gorilla vampire?
They didn't really put a year on them, so we don't know that.
Yeah, but based on the technology and the cars and everything like that in the time, you'd think it's present day, the clothes and everything.
The
No.
fighting is better, but I think the story.
No,
in the
because
first
they
one-
didn't. When they were kids, the technology wasn't around to build an actual robot in that time frame. So once they grew up and were adult ghosts and vampires,
So
then
Robo
they
Vampire
had the technology
It's a
available.
prequel.
2, Robo Vampire 1, despite being
Despite coming out second, is actually the sequel to the second one that came out first.
Yeah, the one we just watched is the prequel, and then they're young. Then they both grow up. Somehow she turns into the ghost.
But
She
what
turns
I was
into-
getting at there was that the Robo Vampire 1 is not set in like contemporary times, it's actually set in the future, since it has that science fiction element of
Correct.
robots and things. They just didn't have the scope of what the future would look like, so they had to just use present day technology and stuff like that. I mean,
And in the final battle, that I thought Alex was in trouble, especially when he was fighting. He handled the vampires pretty easy.
Very
Which-
easy.
Which
well, he had to. There was only 10 minutes left in the movie when they got to the final battle.
Why did they rush that?
Vampires are tough because, like, no matter, like, you can get away from them, but like one hop, they're right back on you. It's like, but then he had the ninjas.
Well, Steve, don't go hopping to conclusions.
Then they had the ninjas. The ninjas were way tougher.
Were they?
Well, if the Talos hadn't given Alex like a one-up there, power-up to... I mean, he was like about...
Yeah, did they turn the ninjas into vampires too? Was that the thing? Like, because they were just ninjas and they all got killed early on in the movie. Didn't they? Like, yeah, right? I can't remember. I watched it 2 weeks ago, like I
Yes,
said.
they were testing to see which was better.
Yeah, so they got killed, but then they were back.
And of course, the first Taoist had got taken over by Ronald at the beginning to do his bidding, to create them. But then the second Taoist, broke him of the spell by making him hurl. Once he hurled and threw up, he was
I do remember
fine.
that.
He was
Yeah.
fine after that, and he was back to his, what am I doing? Like, I'm not evil self.
So he wasn't evil all along. He was just
He was under a control.
Under a spell.
under their Lord of the Rings type twist with King, what's his name? King of Rohan, when he's being controlled by Saruman.
Why can I not remember his name?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I should too. I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in a couple of years. It's
King.
probably due for a rewatch.
Man, that sucks.
And then, of course, the final end scene when Louis and Steve Cox are in the burning building, and Steve Cox is trying to tell Louis what Mary really is. Louis doesn't want to believe it because Mary never mentioned it to him. So why would he? Why would he think that? she
Yeah,
was a
why
friend?
did Steve Cox feel the need to sort of sacrifice himself there at the end for no reason?
Well, first of all, you don't see him die, so I'm hoping that in Robo Vampire 3, Steve Cox will return.
So with all these theories we've had in this discussion here, do you think Robo Vampire 3 acknowledges all of our fan fiction and brings it all together and ties all of it together in one epic final installment?
I wonder
No.
if J.J. Abrams got his
I think it's just going to be another story,
It's different.
vampires, more fighting, and that's literally
They found a third movie that they could loosely tie in with hopping vampires
and a
aluminum
robot,
foil
shadow
robots.
ninja twists, and
Gabe, just remember, it wouldn't be Bad Movie Club if the movies weren't bad. We almost got out of it when we did the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. That was the closest to a competently made movie that we've watched.
That was decent. That was decent.
That was a mistake on our part.
Why?
Because it's decent. It shouldn't have been on here. It should be on a separate segment. We should make a thing where we review decent movies, maybe that other people haven't heard of, and recommend them.
But this is Bad Movie.
Yeah, this is Bad Movie Club. We have to subject ourselves to terrible movies and try and get other people to do the same. We're not trying to spare them. We're trying to make them suffer as we have suffered.
You have got to suffer with us.
And here's the thing about Steve.
You can't cheat. You can't fast forward.
Why would you want to?
Yeah, even with this one, like, there's no highlight videos on this one on YouTube like there is for the first one.
You gotta watch it.
You gotta watch the whole fucking movie to get how bad it is.
An hour and however.
PG-13.
I said fuck twice before that. So
R. It's R now.
It's R.
Yeah, you said it before. Because you can have one F word, I think.
In a PG-13 movie.
Yep. So it is. This one's R.
Here's the thing I thought
Just
about
like the
Steve
movie.
Cox. Steve Cox was pretty chilled about having to go to prison for 10 years. He was okay about having vampires sent out to kill him. But he drew the line at somebody trying to take his gold.
Well, he was a gambling gambling kingpin, whatever they called him. So his gold is his thing, man. He's about greed, yeah.
Remember on the beach, what he told those three guys. What are we going to do with these three guys? It's his gold. You don't mess with him. You do not mess with
Those gambling scenes
Steve
remind me a
Cox.
lot of Casino Royale.
the movie.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Are we're gonna compare Robo Vampire to Lord of the Rings, Casino Royale, anything?
I guess we have been, so it's valid, Steve.
I mean, I could sum it up. Actually, I think there's a more fitting comparison after looking at the two. So Robo Vampire 1, of course, in addition to the vampires, the reason I liked Robo Vampire 1, I gave it the highest rating, if you recall.
Oh, I
First
remember.
one.
Yeah, it's been your highest.
7, I think.
Was because of the Ray and Wendy love story that was in the first one. So now the first one had a love story. This one didn't have a love story really, because I don't count Mary.
It did.
I don't count Mary and Louie as a love story.
Well, they
Why?
hinted at something earlier between Mary and Steve Cox, like that there was something of a scorned relationship there. And,
Well, yeah, they were together, and then she stole his stuff when he went to prison.
yeah, that's what I mean.
That's not really. I don't kiss. It's not like Ray and Wendy in the first one that they fell in love. So the first one really had a love story, and this one was more action, choreography, special effects, stuff like that. So this is more. This to me is more along the lines of, say, the first Terminator and T2.
Wow.
Because in Terminator you had
That
Sarah
is
Connor,
bold.
and
Kyle Reese.
Kyle Reese. But in the second one, you had no really love story,
No, it was a road movie. The second
and
one.
it was all about the action and all that.
It was fantastic.
So to me, like, Godfrey Ho is like the Hong Kong James Cameron.
Oh, wow. Bold. That is bold.
That's high praise.
Very. That's... I was
Except
thinking
if-
this, but this is...
If James Cameron made like 8 movies a year, which of course he does not.
No, he has not made a movie since 2009 that he's actually directed. I mean, he's produced, but it's like literally Avatar is his last movie.
And when was the one before that?
Was it Titanic?
When was that?
97?
So we're working on two years,
Well,
23 years.
He's going to have the most productive streak of his entire career once these Avatar sequels start coming out, and he's cranking out one every other year, and he's got like 4 of them in the works, so it'll be like Avatar 2, Avatar 3, Avatar 4, Avatar 5, all within a decade. So that'll be very, very productive for him. But we're still a ways till we get there. Anywho, back to the terrible movie, Devil's Dynamite.
Yeah.
Robo Vampire 2. Anything else we want to touch upon before we start giving it our final thoughts and ratings?
I think I'm good.
Steve, you have any more notes?
No, I think I'm good.
Well, Gabe, on your patented So Good rating system, where do you put this? 1. So this is sitting at the bottom with the other one. Any,
I thought you said it was worse.
I mean,
You
it
can't give it the
is.
same score if it's worse.
Yeah,
I can't really give it
Listen, he
0.
really backed himself into the corner with the 5-point system. I said you can do halves if you want, but you'd have to give this like a 0.5 then. So Good.
Can I give it a 0?
You can, but I'd still reserve that for... I mean, that trailer we just watched earlier
That was bad.
so
That was bad. Yeah, so, but 0.5. 0.5.
0.5?
If I'm allowed, 0.5.
I'm giving you the permission for zeros and half
Okay.
ratings. So that gets you on the same page as us.
So let's
where
do
we have
this
10.
then. Robo Vampire. I'm going to retract everything. Robo Vampire, 1.5.
1.5.
This one, 1.
1.
There we go.
So watching this one made the first one better?
I mean,
Bumped it up a notch? Half a notch?
yeah. Because,
So
I
1
mean,
and 1.5.
there was the fighting. There was better fighting in this one. But I don't know the story, the ghost, the head vampire. There was just, it seems like, as far as gripping story,
gripping.
first one, I think, pulled in better than just all these gamblers, gangsters, no main vampire. Didn't like his suit. I understand his suit, but
Oh yeah, I'm not defending it in that it was a good suit.
yeah,
I'm just saying I don't think it was ever envisioned to be
Right.
a robot.
I think you're right. So I just because of that, the first one, I don't know. It's just
There's also very little in the way of excuses there because in Japan they were doing the Super Sentai series, Ultraman, the Kamen Rider stuff 20 years before Robo Vampire 2 came out. So, like, there's no excuse to have such terrible suit effects, even with a limited budget.
yeah.
Steve, where do you rate this?
I give it a 6.
A 6, so a point lower than the first one.
Yes, mainly because I was heavily invested in the Ray and Wendy romance of the first one. I didn't feel like Mary loved Louis in this one.
It was a
And
one-sided relationship.
I didn't feel like Louis should have been in a relationship with that evil woman. So,
Well, he didn't know. He was oblivious because he was a terrible cop.
Even Steve Cox didn't want to kill Louis because he didn't do anything wrong.
I did like Steve Cox.
Steve Cox was sort of the background hero of the movie.
It was a
almost.
redemption film for him.
That twist was good.
And of course, the first one had Mr. Young, who I thought was like one of the best movie villains of all time. But I still have to give it that. The fight scenes were a little bit better, and the fact that they tied the kids back into Peter, the gorilla ghost, and Christine, the female ghost.
We
from
don't
the first
know
one.
they tied it.
Yes,
It's
we
just a
do.
Cool.
When you go back and
theory.
watch it, it is.
It's
Once you see it, once you go back and watch it with that,
I'm going to go back and watch that
it's
scene.
clearly obvious that that's the intent.
So what we're going to have to do, it would definitely, I really, really hope, against all logic and common sense and reason, that Robo Vampire 3 is somehow what I want it to be. It ties everything together and makes sense of all of it.
We'll
It's
find out.
not going to happen. There's no fucking way it's going to happen.
You haven't read the synopsis, have you?
No.
For the third one? Have you read it already?
Yes.
Oh boy.
That's going to be a fun episode, guys.
Oh, God.
I don't want to hear it. Unless you want to hear it.
I want to
No.
hear it, but I don't want them to hear it yet.
Nope, I'm just saying.
Okay.
Because if we're going to do a whole episode dedicated to it.
I just want to go in blinded and
Go in and
knowing that
take
I've
it
seen
raw.
the first two. That's what she said.
That's what
Or
I
he
was
said.
They said.
Or they said.
Getting back to Godfrey Ho, I did read on him where I said that he buys other films
And then adds his own
adds the much needed elements of ninjas and vampires to spice up the films.
I mean, granted, the films would be much worse without those elements. Like, there would be no entertainment value to it.
There is one actor who has physically worked with him 5 times on films, but due to the buying and splicing, he has about 20 credits with him Even though he only actually worked with him 5 times because he keeps reusing footage from other movies.
So that means if we watch more of his movies, we're going to see footage from the same movies, but like unused footage spliced in.
It's possible,
Oh,
yes.
dear. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm looking up right now to see what his credited name was in the first Robo Vampire. Because what'd you say it was in this one?
It's Joe Livingston, I believe.
Joe Livingston.
It's both. He's the... I don't know about the third one, but he's...
So Joe Livingston was his name for
First and
Robo
second.
Vampire 1.
Yes.
Okay, where are we at here? 1988. Damn, man, there's so many movies in 1988 that he did.
He averaged 80 a year in the 80s, so there's a lot.
Yeah, Joe Livingston in the first one. And the third one,
I assume he did the third one.
I would hope so.
I
We
would
want
hate
that continuity.
Yes. I want to see how Peter and Christine fit into the third one. Since they're the common thread between 1 and 2.
Is that their names?
Yes.
I had no idea. Did they say that on screen?
Yes.
No, his name for the third one is Edgar Gere, or Jere, Jere.
But is it him?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's all.
Yeah, I'm on his IMDb page, though. It's called The Vampire is Still Alive in 1989.
The third one?
Yes.
Well, it's also known as...
The Vampire is Still Alive.
It's also known as something else.
Counter Destroy?
Yes, Counter Destroy.
Man, that poster is pretty badass. If only the movie was going to be remotely that cool.
Well, the posters have lived up to
Is
them
that
so
a
far.
crossbow? Or a
Yeah,
bow and arrow?
like a crossbow thing attached to his arm.
Okay,
man.
yeah, that's cool.
That
I
was
hope
a
that's
badass
in
poster.
it. I hope it's in it.
It's probably not. There's not going to be anything that looks
No.
remotely like that poster in the movie. I mean, just look at the poster to these first 2 movies.
I know.
There was ninjas on this poster.
There was, but there was this big military Apache helicopter thing that was
There were
not.
2 helicopters.
Yeah, they were not in the movie.
Mm-mm.
Maybe
Were there any helicopters in the movie at all?
Not that I remember.
We even had a helicopter
Maybe in
in
the special
Samurai
edition.
Cop, but we didn't have the helicopter.
Samurai Cop.
We didn't have a
Samurai
helicopter
Cop.
in this movie at all.
Nope.
I didn't give it a rating. God, where did I rank the first one? Was it a 2 or 3? Something?
Yeah, something like that.
I'll have to go back and make these more
2?
comprehensive.
Maybe.
I'm going to give this a 2 as well. I mean, I liked it more than the first one, and if I gave it a 2, I'm going to give this a 2. But it was only just by a small margin. If I gave the other one a 3, I guess I'd have to give this a 3 as well, just to keep it even. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe I'll splash
Even
it on
Stephen
screen
Cox?
for these people. Stephen Cox.
Hammer time. Yeah. So next we can go ahead and jump to the third one.
Yeah, I guess we'll do that.
Since this is all fresh.
So if you guys
We
want
don't have to wait 3 years, do we? Like most sequels.
No, we don't. We're going to do
Good.
this right away. That'll be our next movie. So next week or the week after, whenever
Get it
it
out of
happens
the
to
way
fall.
while all these are on our mind and we're talking about it. Might as well continue the saga.
We might not keep up this weekly schedule, but we'll definitely try and keep up several a month to keep you guys entertained. We're all busy people. We have real lives. We have people in our lives that we care about. Employment opportunities and such. Make money. Dollar bill, y'all. I don't know.
Hammer time.
I'm available for parties if you want to hire me to come talk about movies.
Okay.
See, some people do magicians. Some people do clowns. Some
Steve-
people have
or-
Steve sit there and talk about
Yeah,
movies.
the Jedi Troll just talks about movies and entertains the crowd. And, not to mention his award-winning jokes.
Yes, the patented Steve joke.
Mm.
So make sure you guys tune in next time where our movie will be Robo Vampire 3, Counter Destroy, a.k.a. The Vampire is Still Alive. This one's got a lot of freaking titles. Also directed by the iconic and legendary Godfrey Ho, 1989. So we'll post the link for you guys to be able to watch that movie, but it is on YouTube, so just search it. Just might not know what title to search by because it's a mess.
I was a year old
I was
when that released.
3.
You're older than me.
A little bit, yeah.
Mm. Hammer time.
I was partying in the clubs.
In 1989,
Yes.
Steve in the club.
The Jedi Troll in the club.
So, thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, give us a like on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube, hit that little dingy bell, as Gabe likes to say.
Dingy bell.
We'll see you guys next time.